Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to another edition of the Clinic Growth Secret Show. This is your host, Jeff Van Kampen, in the studio as always. And this is the show where we teach you how to get more patients, make more profit per patient, and keep them as long as humanly possible. Before we get into anything, if you're new here, just a quick reminder that we do have a fee for the show. If you get value from the show, just hit that share button, send it to somebody in your family, of your friends that will get value from the show. If you listen to this show all the way through, my friends, today, there's no shot that you don't get value from this gentleman. And I'm going to get to his intro in just a sec. But if you get value, hit the share button. We grow on word of mouth around here. And so I honestly have not been this hyped to interview a guest on the show in a very long time. And I don't say that lightly. And I would like to first and foremost welcome Mark Murphy of Northeast Private to the show. Mark, thank you for being here, my friend.
Thanks so much, Jeff. We're happy to be here.
Excited for the show. And so to give context, Mark and I randomly and recently have met at a group in Vegas called the Ultimate Achievers Club. It's a group of chiropractors that we're a part of at Clinic Growth Accelerator here. And Mark was actually the first guy I ran into, literally walking down the hall into the event. I was like, hey, man, how's it going? He said he's going to do some speaking. And then from there, I'm like, I have to get this guy on the show. And so to bring you guys up to speed, Mark is the CEO of Northeast Private, which is a group of financial advisors who assist with business development, estate planning, retirement planning, investment and tax planning, and much more inside the business world. But what's really interesting and where we're really going to dive in today is talking about two things: company valuation, and then mergers and acquisitions. And so if you're listening and you want to expand your business, maybe you want to acquire something, or maybe at some point sell the business as well, this conversation is going to be massively valuable for you. And so to give a little context, before we get to the goods, Mark, your journey has been long. You've had a wicked track record of success. How did this all begin for you, man? Like, where did this start? Let's just go for about 3 minutes here or so.
Obviously grew up dumb and broke in Suffern, New York. So, but sort of realized pretty early on that I was always at my best when I was serving others, and was pretty endlessly curious. And so, I just think you realized early on that if you could, ask powerful questions, people would tell you what they wanted, and then you could go find the resources to help solve those problems and help make their life better. And that's all we try to do.
I love that. That's excellent. And do you find that you were always into finance and stuff, or was
It came from that, but I think we're early on, became key business strategists first, critical thinkers second, then financial advisors third. And I think it just became incredibly clear that when I would take a look and I would see all of these financial people and all these groups saying, just put your money in the stock market, or just give me the money to invest and I'll become a billionaire. And it became pretty clear to me that, Bill Gates wasn't worth $110 billion because of his 401k.
Mhm.
It became clear to me that, entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial thinking people were the ones that were creating multi-generational wealth, and that the best investment that entrepreneurs made is when they invested in themselves.
Mhm.
And so we spent, an awful lot of time saying, if you only had $1 to invest, an entrepreneur should invest it in what they know in their business or some other operating company. They could then invest it in income producing real estate. They could also invest it in other companies. But that was the way that wealth was being created. That's the way people were really creating real wealth. You can also do it with divorce and inheritance if you're lucky enough to have that.
Sure.
But I think that a lot of the things that people think are the gateway to creating wealth are really at the very best just inflation adjusted holding tanks. They're just putting it in tanks to barely keep up with inflation. And they hope if they work and save for 40 years with Social Security, they're going to have a comfortable retirement, maybe. And for most people, they take a big step down. And what we really wanted is we wanted the people that created such abundance that they were not only had enough to take care of themselves and their family, and not only their family for generations, but they would have the abundance to help other people. And it was a way to directly and indirectly make the world a little better place, because you had people with a bunch. You never got nobody who was broke ever gave me a job. Nobody that had just enough helped anybody else. You needed people that were entrepreneurial and could really create real abundance in the world.
I love that. So you've basically adopted the philosophy of helping people create abundance for themselves, multi-generational wealth, and just being able to just like really reach that next level of consciousness to serve the world.
I mean, you need to do a few things. One is your money has to work while you sleep. And the other thing is that was just like it's the takeaway. And I think that what's so apropos to what you guys do in the consulting business and in the chiropractic world and the marketing business is ultimately, most people who own a business think they're entrepreneurs, but they've just bought themselves a job. Sometimes an okay paying job, sometimes a really good paying job, but they're getting paid for what they do rather than what they know. And I think in addition to your money working while you're sleeping, one of the tenets of an entrepreneurial mindset is you've got to get paid and your business has to ignore revenue, not just when you're working, but when your business is working or other people are working. And that is the difference. I always say to somebody, if we put you in the witness protection program for 2 years, would your company survive? And if the answer is yes, it would survive, but would it thrive? And the answer is no. You're not an entrepreneur. You've got yourself a job.
So true.
And so we want people to create abundance.
I love that. Excellent there. And that transitions well. The promise on the show, and just to be clear to the listeners, we have a limited time today with Mr. Mark here. So that transitions well, creating abundance, creating wealth. We want to talk about two main things: increasing organizational valuation, what helps with that kind of stuff, and then a little bit about mergers and acquisition, maybe how to spot some stuff, and maybe even how to protect yourself from maybe like a deal that's not set up in your favor, right? And I know we won't get too deep, but it'll give some ideas to you listeners. So to kind of start the fire here, what do you feel like really increases in organizational value in terms of somebody's like, hey, maybe I want to have my business acquired. Maybe I want to exit. Maybe I'm a doc listening and I want to get out. I'm 52 and I want to get out in the next 10 years. Like, what can I do to increase that exit?
Well, let's talk about a couple of things. The first thing is when people say, I want to grow my business. I don't think you really grow a business. You grow people by investing in people. And oftentimes that return takes months or even years to get a return on that money when you're investing in people. But when you grow people, that's how you grow a business. It's not, that to me is the misnomer. Growing a business is about growing people in my purview. The second thing is having private equity. There's good news and bad news about private equity entering professions like dentistry or veterinary. Now it's entering chiropractic care as well. And so the good thing about it is that I think that a lot of these doctor to doctor sales that went on over the last 30 or 40 years, they were kind of like these kind of formulas like, oh, we pay 60% of gross, or we pay 100% of gross, and so it didn't matter if the business was wildly profitable or wildly unprofitable, it was worth 60% of gross or 100% of gross. And I think that in every other business in the world, it's all based on EBITDA. So one of the first books we wrote was on mergers and acquisitions, and it's a very simple concept: is that what you want to do is you want to take two streams of revenue, and you want to combine that and put that through one stream of fixed overhead, and that's how you create EBITDA. And so that most businesses now, especially as private equity has come into, say, chiropractic, it's not just what the gross is, it's what the profitability is. And a very simple way that I try to define that, and again, it's much more complicated than that, but sort of the back of the napkin layman's way to go do that is to say, if I have a business that collected $1 million and I could hire another chiropractor to go do my business, and I'd have to pay that chiropractor $250,000. But I made $500,000 last year, and I took $50,000 of personal expenses legally deducted from my business. What I would say is your EBIT on that business is $300,000. Mm-hmm. And the way that I would take that is you'd have to, when you leave, or if somebody else bought that business, you'd have to pay that chiropractor $250 to go work there. But you made $500, so your profit was $250. Yep. But you also want to add back those personal expenses you deducted through the company. So your profitability was $300,000. And if that's sold for a 5-time multiple, well, then someone would pay $1.5 million for your business. If you could get that profitability to $400,000 and they sold it at a 5X, well, then your business would be worth $2 million. Conversely, you may have somebody that collected that same $1 million, but their profitability was $200,000. If they left, they'd still have to pay that doctor $250,000. Their business had a negative EBITDA. And so it was worth very, very, very little. And so I think that one of the things I know you help people do, and I think what we help people do, is we help people to create real profitable businesses. And by the way, Jeff, we don't design them to sell. Selling is always an option. Acquiring is always an option. And we do that often. But the idea is we also try to run those businesses like you're going to own them and run them for 100 years, and to try to build the best business that we could buy, not only so that it could be sold for the most, but so that we have not only the best product, the best office, the best organization, but the most profitable organization as well, so that you're making more money than anybody else for doing what you're doing.
I love that. So so the notion there is first of all, build people. And it's going to take months, it's going to take years, but that's what the valuation is going to come from. That's what the real growth is going to come from. And really, really focus on the EBITDA rather than just like top line stuff. People are like, oh, I'm doing $1 million a year. If I sold, I could get 5 million, you know? So it's basically focusing on the profit and making sure that, hey, when you do exit, you're yielding sufficient. So when you do get a multiple, 5, whatever, probably less, like you can make what you want as far as an exit plan. Very
Yeah,
good.
and as I say, I think that the how to is one of the things we show people is exactly how to identify those practices to buy. How to approach the people. It's less of a negotiation and more of a collaboration. And so it's an entire process. In fact, we wrote a book on that. In fact, the book is, I think, 8 years old. It was written by my partner at Fortune Management, Bernie Stoltz. And Bernie and I wrote this book, but I have to tell you, we probably should have not only put out 2.0, we should have probably put out about 5.0.
Okay.
Because we just continue to evolve and get more sophisticated in terms of ways where we're helping people play the merger acquisition game. And I think that works beautifully, because we will not do a deal where for me to win, Jeff, you have to lose, or for you to lose, I have to win. We want to do a deal where both parties do better together than they could apart. And we love to have what we call a class 3 experience. It's got to be great for the patients first. It's got to be great for the team second. And that's got to be great for both the selling and buying doctors third.
You spoke about that in the Ultimate Achievers Club. That was one of my takeaways from that, was those 3 things you just listed there. That's excellent. And so when people go about, like merging, acquiring, let's say there's a doc listening and potentially there is his practice. Let's say he's doing $1 million a year. Let's give him the benefit that we'll say they're doing $1 million a year in profit. And he starts like looking around and maybe buying some like other practices and stuff. Like, I guess, when do you feel like an entrepreneur like should experience or should go and search for an acquisition? Like, are there times where it's wrong to do that and they're kind of like premature? I guess what does timing have to do with all this?
First of all, I think there's a couple of things. One is you can never be too rich or too thin or have too many patients. That's fact. That's number one. Mm-hmm. I think so. Number two is, if you're looking to grow your business, that's when you should be looking for that. So if you're looking to grow your business next year, if 2024 is going to be a year you want to grow your practice, then there's no better time to play the merger acquisition game. Having said that, though, I think you also want to make sure that you have an organization that is put together that you'll be able to handle the influx of people. Meaning, sometimes an organization may be not in a position where they've got the infrastructure in place to be able to properly handle those new patients. And so I think that would be the only exception to the rule to that, to be able to say, hey, is there some internal work we have to do? Do we have to get some of the right people? Do we have to get some of the right systems there? We have to get some of the right marketing in place. I mean, what do you tell people? Tell me a little bit of what is Clinic Growth Accelerator? What do they tell folks? And what do they do for those doctors?
For us here at CGA, mostly our proposition is that you have an already working business. We're going to put fuel into the business. And that's one of the old school ways of just growing, of evaluation of company, is like, hey, like, let's just get more customers. Let's get more patients. Right. But mostly we care about the acquisition, where it's like they have to be acquired. Like, I can send you all leads all day. That doesn't matter. I want to make sure that we're coaching you and holding you accountable to making sure those leads are coming in and actually paying some money to the business. Otherwise, it's just a bunch of fluff, And that's what happened initially when I started, and Nick and I started, was it was just leads. I'm like, hey man, here's all your leads. And then it was like a good luck strategy. You know what I mean? And then what happened is there was no money made. And I was like, dude, we suck at this lead gen stuff. But then I realized, I'm like, oh, like they just weren't calling the leads. They just weren't having a good sales message, So then we helped them with that too. And naturally, if you pull on a couple levers, you get more leads, you get more of them to show, and you work on your sales percentage a little bit. Now your business grows, like it doubles in a month. You know what I mean? And And that's what's cool about it, you
You know,
know?
we obviously represent a lot of people in many different industries, but we've now started to penetrate the the chiropractic vertical, a lot with our partnership with Black Diamond Club and
Oh yeah, sure.
UAC and some other folks like that. Tell me a little bit about, and now others, and just keeps expanding. But with obviously we've learned a lot from Sean Dillon and Lacey Book in terms of what they're doing. If I had to say, what are the top three things? I've got a client of mine that's going to watch this podcast.
Yeah.
What are the three things if they hire a CGA they would come away with? What exactly do you do? Get it clear in their mind if they're they're mowing the lawn on Saturday or they're in the car or at the gym listening to this podcast. What are they gonna take away of why they want to hire a CGA?
Yeah, three things. First of all, I think the business is the business program is very old school. Okay, meaning that we're going to help drive in new business. We're going to do that with digital ads, essentially 3 to 5 miles around the practice. We'll drive you leads, and then we'll get those leads to schedule appointments with the office. Then you've got yourself a booked appointment. But what we'll also teach in the second piece is that we're going to teach the people internally how to qualify that patient before they come into the office, because the clinical time for the doctor is super important, right? So we're going to teach them to do a little mini screening over the phone. So that way, if they're not a fit, there's very minimum waste of time. There's no logistics between either party, right? But if they are a fit, then they'll invite them in, and then we'll ultimately teach the doctor how to say, hey, here's how to actually go through discovery phase. Here's how to build that trust, because a lot of docs go their business on word of mouth and referrals. And then when they do colder traffic, they think that they should just convert like referrals do. But it's the classic cliche of know, like, and trust you. Well, the referral has all three. The advertising person they know you. They don't trust you. They don't like you. So we'll teach you how to bridge that gap between trust and like to actually acquire that patient.
What I think a lot about is, I'm not a believer in competition. I don't believe I'm in competition with any other firm.
Agreed.
I don't think anybody's in competition. I believe in differentiation.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not afraid to be different. I'm afraid to be the same.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the critical things in business is that you have got to, there's so much information out there and so many people have so many choices and there's so many opinions and so many other things. I think your job is to make it so clear to the potential customer, patient, client, whatever you call it, about exactly what the differentiation is, because most people are looking to commoditize everybody and say, hey, everybody's the same. Every financial services firm is the same. Every chiropractor is the same. Every law firm is the same. And we know there's great differences between people that do things at an elite level. And, by definition, 50% of the people in every position or in every, in every industry are below average. Actuarially, 50% of the people are below average. But I think in consumer's mind, they want to. It's hard for them to differentiate between the wheat and the chaff, and who are really the people that are going to deliver, on their promise.
Agreed.
And to me, that's where I spend a lot of time thinking not only about my business, but thinking about all the other people that we do business with, of how can we differentiate ourselves from everybody else, so that the consumer can say, I can only get that experience by working with Northeast Private Client Group, or I can only get that experience by working with CGA, or I can only get that experience by working with their practice, not the chiropractor down the street.
100%. I love that. No competition, just only differentiation. That's excellent. Very good there. I know we got about 7 minutes here. A couple of things you touched on that were relevant there. I asked about timing, and one of the things you had mentioned was you said earlier in the show that, hey, you're going to take two streams of revenue and put it under one fixed overhead, right? So your thought was, if the organizational overhead is not sound and it's not prepared to take on that revenue from like a people standpoint, process standpoint, that would be a red flag.
Right.
Correct. Cool. So that makes a lot of sense there. Now, if somebody was like, maybe I could be a little selfish on this question. I could say, hey, if I'm an online business and I wanted to acquire maybe like a YouTube ads agency and help with healthcare and that kind of stuff, like where would somebody even go to begin to look for deals and stuff like that?
I think that ultimately, you've got to, I think, that's a little bit longer of a question, but I would say, back to say let's go to the chiropractic realm, which you spend a lot of your time in.
Mm-hmm.
In good times, when the economy is good, even mediocre businesses seem to do pretty well, where people are not in great deals of great rushes to sell or to make moves. Everybody's pretty comfortable. where the great fortunes are made, or when you go into rough times. I think many people think we're heading towards a pretty good recession here, and things have started to slow down a little bit already. That those weaker companies, the companies that are over levered, the people that don't have the systems in place, the people that don't have, that are running mediocre or poor businesses, they become, I don't want to say desperate, but they become unprofitable. And then there's opportunities for well-run companies to come in and scoop them up. And when I say create a win-win deal, not being predatory to just buy them, but to give them an opportunity to get out of the morass, get out of the negativity, and maybe to come to a successful organization where they can go back to being profitable and making a great living by merging or being acquired by that other firm. And I think that ultimately you're going to see an awful lot of that going on, because, as I said, if you have people that lose 10% of their business, let's say your business drops by 10%. In a lot of companies, that's 30 or 40% of the profitability.
Right.
10% is the cream that does that. And then on top of that, you have a shortage of people. So now maybe your payroll costs are higher than they were a couple of years ago. So you lose 10% of the top, and that cuts 30 or 40% of the profitability.
Gone.
You then raise your costs of doing business, and now you're making less than half of what you were making before, and you got to try something different. And I think that the thing I try to make sure that when things are going well in my business or for other businesses, you have a tendency to get a little bit lazy and not look at your overhead and not look if everything's working, because you got money in the bank at the end of the month, and the numbers look great. And I think that one of the entrepreneurial concepts you have to have is you have to look at your business as a family, in that everybody looks at their business as a family and cares about their people they work with and cares about the people that work for them. But you also have to look at like a ball club, and you've got to continually upgrade your team, and like a general manager, and you got to continually evolve and to try to get to a place where you can put, one of the things I try to do every year is we're having a very, very good year in 2023, but as we're entering the fourth quarter, I'm spending a lot of my time thinking about how in 2024 can I put my 2023 business out of business. And I look at the overhead that we have in our business, and it's very clear to me that I only have two categories of things on my balance sheet, and that's either expenses or investments. And if you're an expense, you're always on the chopping block. But if you're an investment, I have almost an unlimited appetite for investment, as long as I can get at least a 4 or 5 to 1 return on my money or more. And so you critically look at those things and say, it's not that I want to not spend that money because we're not getting a great return on it. I want to pull that investment, that expense back, so that I can invest it in something that would be a higher utility to the business.
Different vehicle, people, different resources.
It's not, you can never save yourself to profitability. That, I mean, people think, cut expenses.
No way.
Temporarily that may boost the bottom line, but ultimately you'll never create any abundance by just cutting expenses. You've got to take those cuts and expenses and turn those expenses into investments that can create abundance.
So it's not enough to just save. You got to just actually say, hey, okay, I do have this extra money from saving, and now I need to deploy it.
Yeah. And there's a lot of people out there that, that like in the financial business that, oh, you've got to just get rid of debt and get rid of, ultimately you should get rid of bad debt. But good debt is good debt. Bad debt is bad debt. You can't be over levered in debt. You have to have cash confidence. You have to have liquidity for both opportunities or emergencies. But having said that is, I think there are some people under the misnomer that if I just get rid of my credit card debts and I pay off my mortgage, I can retire. And they forget, well, okay, I have no mortgage on my house, but where am I going to get the income to pay all my bills?
Right.
They have no strategy to create, abundant cash flow.
There's no cash
They just
flow,
thought, getting out of debt was the key. And I think sometimes in business, they cut themselves, and again, that temporarily makes the balance sheet look better. But in the long run, if you do that for the long run, it's the death to the business.
It's done. 100%.
If you're not growing, you're shrinking.
If you're not growing, you're dying. Very well said. We are about 1 minute until I know you got to run. I want to be respectful of your time. If somebody got value from this show, where can people reach out to you? Where can they find you? What resources would you like them to look at?
Well, you can reach me at I can give you my email address. It's Mark_Murphy at northeastprivate.com. We're at, by the way, we're at northeastprivate.com is our website, and markbmurphy.com. So, and they can also take a look at my #1 book on Amazon called The Ultimate Investment.
Ultimate Investment.
Yeah, The Ultimate Investment is the 3rd book we put out. Just you can find that at Amazon, or you can find that virtually at any place where books are sold. And we also have a top 40 podcast called the Hero of the Hour podcast as well. So, all I can tell you, Jeff, is I'm a big fan of yours. That the work you're doing, is not only making a difference in the lives of the doctors that you're working with, but it's making a difference in the lives of those teams. But ultimately, how many people are getting better and having a better standard of care and becoming healthier because you're helping these practices become better. And so, I always say, why solve one problem when you can solve 3 or 4? I think when you come in and help people, you're not solving just one problem, you're solving probably 5 or 6 or 7. And so, I'd love nothing better to figure out how we can work closer together, because I think CGA can help a lot of our clients create a lot more wealth. And just thank you for having me on your podcast, and really appreciate you and appreciate the work that you guys and your partners are doing.
I appreciate the kind words, Mark. I've taken so much from this show. And like I said, I'm honored to explore the relationship. I'm going to be buying your book. If you're still handing away the signed copies from UAC, I'll take you up on that too.
I'll make sure Brittany gets you out a copy. And, maybe one of the things we ought to do is why don't we talk offline? I'll Brittany schedule some time for us to talk and see if we can talk about, come back with something, and maybe we'll do a podcast in 6 months and do something that is so powerful and so creative that we've changed the lives of thousands and thousands of people between now and the next time we speak to everybody.
Man, if we can make that happen, that will be sleeping good at night no matter what. I'd be honored to be a part of that, man. I appreciate it, Mark. Honored today to be on the show, or to have you on the show. You've shared a wealth of knowledge. We'll continue the relationship. Guys, if you got value, make sure you check out Mark and his work, and then check out his website, his book. And then if you did get even deeper value, hit that share button. We grow around here on word of mouth, guys. All right. I appreciate everyone being here. Mark, thank you so much for your time, my friend.
I would just say one question. I answered that question. I started that question when I spoke to you guys at the UAC, and to me, it's a powerful question. I think if you're sitting back and watching this podcast today, or any of the podcasts that you do, I think the question always comes is that the decisions that you're going to make tomorrow when you go into your business can be the key to unlocking your future prosperity, not just for your business, but for your life, and not only for you, but for your children and for future generations to come. And I keep saying, if that was the difference, if that was really true, that the decisions you make tomorrow are going to affect your future, how would you act differently than you act now? What decisions would you make differently? And what are you willing to do that you're not doing now to have what you don't have? And so I think that's the answer that I think you and I want to help people answer that question, and help them answer that question. And I look forward to brainstorming with you and Nick, and seeing if we can create that bigger, better future for everybody that we come in contact with.
I would love that. I'm going to be exploring that question this week. I'll tell you that right now.
Thank you, my friend. Talk to you soon.
Yes, sir.
Bye-bye.
That sounds great. Bye now.
Bye-bye.